Hey everybody, welcome. It's now 8 o'clock, so the meeting is officially called to order. There are index cards in the back of the room. If anybody wants to write a question for any of the candidates, please fill them out and have them brought up to me. We also have some other documents in the back of the room. Sign-up sheets if anybody wants to volunteer to collect signatures for the nominating petitions or to serve as a poll worker at the special election next Wednesday. At this point, I'm going to introduce the candidates. Starting on my right, your left, is Mark Pohar. Next, Cesar DeRose. Both are incumbent trustees. And the new nominees are Meredith Satrin, although I know you like to be called Mary, so I'll try to remember that, and Kim Izzarelli. So thank you, everybody, for coming out, and thank you to the school district for allowing us to use the facilities. At this point, carrying over from our nominating meeting, I'm going to read a resolution for the secretary to cast one vote for the nominees for the Caucus Executive Committee. Myself, Aaron Stern, as chair, Larissa Wayne Palmeno, who's in the back of the room, as vice chair, Louis Linder, who's the treasurer, and Toby Clarnett, who's the secretary. And she is directed to cast one vote for the members of the executive committee for one-year terms commencing April 1. Do I have a motion? Thank you. And a second? Thank you. How about ayes? Anybody approving the motion? Hold your hands. Okay. All right. Nays? Sounds like we have a unanimous approval. So, Toby, I'm going to give this to you.
Get up there?
No, it's okay.
Good, because everything's going to fall.
That's fine. Thank you.
Aaron?
Yep. Mr. Austin motioned, and Mr. DeRose Sr. was the second.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's get started. We'll start with opening statements from the candidates, starting from left to right, and all evening we're going to be reversing order, left to right and then right to left, so everyone has an equal opportunity. Mr. Pohar, would you please address the caucus?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the People's Caucus Executive Committee. Last week, I accepted the caucus nomination for trustee of our village, and I am honored and excited to be part of the continuing forward movement of this wonderful village. My name is Mark Pohar. My wife, Carrie, and I moved to the village 21 years ago, a village where family values and community values are seen as top importance. These values are evident and upheld by the residents and the trustees of the village. We have raised our 3 children in Briarcliff and incorporated the importance of family, community, and friendship, including the understanding the importance of giving back to the community through volunteerism while maintaining family values, tradition, and a strong work ethic. Personally, I have volunteered in the community, contributing to parish activities including teaching religious education, membership on the parish council, and Eucharistic minister. In addition, I have sat on the Todd PTA as school treasurer and on the Health and Safety Committee. I sit on several additional boards, including the Untermeyer's Performing Arts Council and the Schools of the Sacred Heart in Yonkers, which I have held a position on the Marketing and Strategic Planning Committee. For the past 4 years, I've had the distinct honor to work with a seasoned professional group of individuals as trustee and deputy mayor in the village. Over my tenure, I have been part of the implementation plan for our future while developing policies and approving budgets. As a board, we are recognized that our fiduciary responsibility to our village residents is to hold down costs while improving and enhancing our services. We certainly have moved our village forward. This was no easy task, as you can imagine. It required financial creativity and commitment. Here is a review of some of the projects which were accomplished under my tenure. Number one, we have maintained the regulatory tax cap each year, even before it was required by the state. We have constantly maintained one, if not the lowest taxes in Westchester County. We amended our zoning in the central business district to foster improvement and development by private property owners. We added new fields to our village for recreation and sports accommodation for our children. We are completing our community center where our residents will benefit from an enhanced gathering place for meetings and social events. We have redone the basketball courts and the youth center. We embarked on a public improvement project at the club site, which will provide new and improved water and sewage service to the northwest portion of our village. It will provide hydraulic-driven pressure, increasing fire protection and residential services. In addition, we added bathrooms and comfort stations at the site. We updated the paddle courts. We increased our bond rating while decreasing our debt. We installed an ice skating rink for the enjoyment of our residents, and we had worked with the fire and ambulance for soft billing of insurance companies to enhance revenue while not decreasing our services. In addition, we are in the process of several other projects, including the Briarcliff intersection beautification, widening the turn onto Pleasant Road. We're shovel-ready with that. Pocantico River Bridge project, which is part of the Village and County Coordinating Project. Our Chilmark Park redesigns plans are moving forward, including updating the tennis courts at Chilmark Park, comfort station, field enhancements, and additional storage areas. And our North State 9A intersection, widening the roadway to allow traffic to turn left, right, and proceed straight onto Pleasantville Road to alleviate the bottlenecks on North State Road. As your trustee and deputy mayor, I intend to continue to work with the mayor, Lori Sullivan, trustees Mark Wilson, Cesar de Rosaire, and Brian Zerman. We must continue to be financially prudent while evaluating opportunities to improve our village. We have worked diligently as trustees for our residents, but there is still so much more to do. As trustee, I would like to keep the momentum going, together with the board, to see through the completion of our projects currently underway and those in the pipeline. We must continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pohar. Mr. DeRose, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out and taking the time here tonight. I thank the Caucus Executive Committee, Aaron Stern, Clarissa Giosha, Louis Linder, Larissa, and Toby. I appreciate the time and effort that you put into this tradition, and I'm happy to be a part of it. As I previously mentioned, I have been a resident of Briarcliff for a majority of my life. Almost 25 years ago, my parents chose Briarcliff as a village to raise my brother and I. We are both graduates of the Briarcliff school system, and that's where I met my wife, Carrie. We were married in 2008, and I did not consider any other place to live when I was searching for our first home. The sense of community and positive experiences we had growing up are something that we wanted exactly for our children, and I think that Briarcliff as a village provided just that. Over the past 2 years, I believe that I brought a unique experience to the Board of Trustees. In managing my own businesses here in Briarcliff and growing up in the town, as I'd mentioned, I have an intimate knowledge of the places and people that we as a board manage on a weekly basis. For example, as an associate member of the Briarcliff Fire Department, not only am I familiar with all of the officers and a majority of the members, I'm also knowledgeable on the equipment that we budget for, either having used it myself or seen it used firsthand. Although I've enjoyed working with my empty nester colleagues on the board, I think it's important for the BOT to have an age diversity to represent the different ages here in Briarcliff. I have a young family with 2 young daughters. One's currently attending Todd School as a kindergartner. On the weekends, you can find us in the soccer fields, frequenting the village parks, enjoying the local community events and festivities we as a board work so hard to maintain. During the summer, my daughter attends the village camps that we manage and loves swimming in the pool and pavilion that we're working so hard to restore. Over the past 2 years, I think these unique experiences and circumstances have lent a valuable perspective. I look forward to the next 2 years as what the next 2 years will bring, and I'm excited to see the current projects we are working on come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And Mary, it's your turn. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Satrin. I'm going to apologize in advance for any time I cough. I have an inflamed nerve, so I have my tea. Please bear with me. I'm happy to be here as we gather to start the process to select the next Village Board of Trustees. This is the future of Briarcliff. I am very thankful for the nomination. For those of you who don't know me, I have been a Briarcliff resident for 13 years. I am involved with the Briarcliff PTA and the CSI community. I am a mother to 3 children and to 2 dogs. I actively support all things Briarcliff. My background is in education. I am a preschool teacher with a master's in reading and a bachelor's in English. I am currently head class parent of Todd's school and have been a Girl Scout troop leader for 6 years. I have lots of experience working with both children and adults to achieve goals. I came to Briarcliff as a working woman who wanted a family. I love the idea of a small town and a warm environment. 13 years later, I have that family, and I really adore the community. A community that bands together for fundraising events such as Mezzapalooza and the Briarcliff Has Heart 5K. I am proud to be part of Briarcliff. Now I really want to become part of Briarcliff's future. I am a dedicated customer of Briarcliff stores, restaurants, and services. I would like to see the Briarcliff merchants thrive. I would like to be part of the process that rebuilds the pavilion. I can be objective and help make decisions. I believe that communication is important, and I am open to exploring new ideas for underutilized space within Briarcliff. I want to continue Briarcliff's tradition of events that bring everyone together. Briarcliff should be a place where everyone has the opportunity to share their ideas and concerns, a place that continues to grow. I want to become part of the planning that goes into all that makes Briarcliff a fabulous place to live. I bring fresh ideas and perspectives to the board. That is why I'm running to be your village trustee. Thank you once again for coming here tonight, and thank you for voting for me on January 27th.
Thank you, Mrs. Satrin. And Ms. Izzarelli, would you step up?
Absolutely, and thank you, Aaron. Good evening. My name is Kim Izzarelli, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming out on this cold January night. I wish we were doing this in March. Most of you already know me. You might know me as the mother to Lauren and Joel, or as a volunteer on many school committees. You might know me as our host on a local community TV show, or the condominium board member, which I've been on for since 2004, I guess, or maybe just from the ballot itself. I've run several times, and my last race was for the New York State Assembly in 2012. But if you don't know me, let me begin by saying that this year begins my 20th year as Briarcliff Manor resident, and I arrived here like you, many of you, full of dreams for the family I wanted and I've been fortunate to have, and the wonderful home that I hope to create and the community that I would someday serve. Through those 20 years, I've made many friends, and I've worked hard, and I've volunteered, and I've paid my property taxes, and I've raised my children. And tonight I'd like to share briefly my vision, or some of the points that I feel make me best suited for the village trustee. I'm running, my basic 3 points are that I think we need more objectivity and inclusion on our village board, and we need a diversity of opinions. We see 5 years and many years of just 5-0 votes, and my feeling, just democracy doesn't really work that way. 3-2, 4-1, but we never hear the dialogue, and I think it's important for people to hear that. It concerns me. We also need to clean up our roadways and keep Briarcliff beautiful, and I've never seen so much trash lining our streets. I don't know why it's become such a problem, but it's got to be cleaned up, and I'm very concerned about the trees, the lack of them, and that we're not getting the replantings that we need. So beautification is important, and lastly is the future of Briarcliff, and we'll get into that more during the debate. But definitely, planning and financial planning is something that's my forte, and I would want to talk about that more tonight. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my experience and background. Before Kids BK, I was a retirement plan consultant. I took 11 years off, raised my family, became the midlife career changer, went back to school to work in public sector, school business administration, very comparable to our village treasurer, I guess, would be equivalent position. Earned my MS in educational leadership from Pace University, in addition to a master's degree from the University of Hartford in organizational behavior. And I also have a degree in business from American International College. So I started working in school districts in the central business function the last couple of years, and have been very, very fortunate to work in both Mount Vernon schools and Mamaroneck schools. I was able to learn much about financial accounting for government, which is its own different animal, and use Munis, which is the financial accounting system here that we use in Briarcliff. Learn a lot about capital projects and the accounting for them, managing budgets, facilities management, finance, and grant management. I also had some access in the human resource capacity, which, by the way, 70% or more of your budget is spent on compensation, an area that I'm very well versed in, particularly civil service, and its nuances and collective bargaining agreements. So once again, I thank you for this forum tonight, and I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Izzarelli. One piece of housekeeping that I'm just going to announce, that the broadcast schedule from Cablevision is Saturday, January 23rd at 4, Sunday, January 24th at 2, Monday the 25th at 10 p.m., and Tuesday the 26th at 11 p.m. And this is being recorded for us by Cecilia Rohr of Visible Touch Media. Visual Touch Media. I get it right once in a while. Okay, we're going to open the questioning, and we have received a significant number of questions from the audience, so we may drop out some of the questions you have been provided with and switch to some of the others. But let's get started, and we're going to start it again from left to right, and then we'll switch on the questioning from right to left. So, Mr. Pohar, would you take this first question? And anybody following that, just follow in order. Does the village board intend to continue work toward becoming a coterminous town village? If so, what impact can residents anticipate down the road should this change in government form occur? And lastly, what steps, if any, does the village intend to take to assure that the reassessment project, which is underway in the town assessor's office, results in fair treatment of village residents?
Yes, thank you. What? I forgot the first question. No. At the village board, we continue to believe that Briarcliff Manor becoming a coterminous town village is a preferred form of governance that we should pursue. Becoming a coterminous would negate inequities of taxes that all the residents of Briarcliff Manor suffer now. Becoming coterminous would eliminate a layer of governance while further unifying our village. We would have our own assessing unit, and we do not believe that there would be any inequities. There would be no more expenses for our residents, and there should be some savings. As far as the reassessment, the town of Ossining has embarked on having its own town-wide assessment. We, as a village in Briarcliff, are focused on ensuring a fair reevaluation of the town of Ossining side of the village of Briarcliff Manor, whether for village or school taxes in two separate school districts. Last year, we hired an independent and experienced former assessor to monitor, review, and assist the village of Briarcliff Manor as findings in the town of Ossining reevaluation are made known. We anticipate intense efforts going forward by the board and staff in making sure that all the residents in the village are protected from any effect to shift the cost of governance disproportionately to the residents.
Thank you, Mr. Pohar. Mr. DeRose, do you have anything to say on that topic?
Well, I'm sorry, could you just read the question again?
Sure. Does the village board intend to continue work toward becoming a coterminous town village? And if so, what impact can residents anticipate from this change in governmental form should it occur? And then lastly, can you comment on steps the village intends to take to assure that the reassessment project is fair in its treatment to village residents?
Mark said a lot of the points that I would make, but I would just add that I think it's important to note that we have hired a consultant who formerly was an assessor, who's very familiar with the process, and is going to work with the board, whose singular goal is to make sure that there's a fair property assessment, and if there's any opportunity for grievances, he will be working with us hand in hand when and if that comes.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And Ms. Satrin, I know this is a question you're probably not very familiar with, but if you'd like to add anything to it, please feel free.
Well, clearly I'm not on any of these committees, but I did some research, and just as I thought was very interesting, there are currently only 5 coterminous locations in New York State, 2 of which being in Westchester, 1 being in Long Island. And it's not super easy to do this, and it's a long process. It's a very involved process, one I am definitely looking forward to researching further.
Okay, and do you have any comment on the town assessment process?
Well, I know several people are not happy with how it's going, and especially with how you get an assessor just knocking on your door. And I know that the town has definitely taken steps to write letters to make sure that the assessor makes themselves known and can come in and do it fairly.
Thank you. And Ms. Izzarelli, do you have anything to add on that subject?
I do, thank you. And I would say first, just to begin, we do clearly have some differences here. With respect to the coterminous town village, I think in the governor's effort to find efficiency in municipalities, the idea was to form fewer towns, not create more of them. So if everything were to continue as planned, you would have the town outside and the village of Ossining forming another town, I guess, in theory, because they couldn't cease to exist independently without us. So I'm very concerned about this. I don't think it's a good plan. I think I've never seen anything spread over fewer people and cost less. I think we need to be prepared for the potential for a lot of lawsuits that we may end up having to fight and spending more money than we're actually saving. This has a very, very detrimental effect to people that live in the unincorporated area of Ossining in terms of the property values of their homes. And I just think as a person, it's just not a good thing to do. We're a little wealthier community. The other side of the town is not as affluent. And I feel, just from a social perspective, that I have a duty to keep us whole. And I think that was the governor's intent, is to create fewer towns, not more. With respect to the reassessment, I commend the town of Ossining for being brave enough to be one of the communities in Westchester to step up to reassess. Of course, people don't like being inconvenienced, but the fact is that the closer you are to market value with your assessed values, the fewer tax certiorari's you have. And so you always want to stay current. And I think it's a hard process. It's a long process. It's a long inventory process to go through and do this work. It's also an expensive process, but at the end of the day, you'll have a third of the homes paying a little more, a third of the homes paying less, and a third of the homes staying about the same. Where I also would differ, and I just want to put on the record, is the homestead tax option, which would be an option if the town of Austin were to reassess and begin to, if they choose to do it by vote, reassess condos to be taxed differently than they are now. They would be taxed as single-family homes. I am opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Izzarelli. All right, we go to a 1-minute response. If anybody has anything further they would like to add to their own comments or to comment on someone else's comment. And Kim, that's for you first.
I'm very, I think there's a long list of accomplishments, but I think we need to be aware of the fact that the individual trustee member is a member of a board. And so it might be more productive in this forum to talk about what you do and what you've done and your skills than to talk about what the village has done, which may not directly be a result from the individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith, is there anything you'd like to add? Or Mary, my apologies.
Thank you. I definitely prefer being called Mary. My only comment would be I would really like more communication about what is going on. When I was looking through for research, it was not so easy to find. I went back to the Briarcliff website and I was going on all of the different links, and I was looking back at Manor monthlies, and there was not one single Manor monthly for all of 2015. So all of the research I did is all based on 2014, and I did see several letters, but I saw an assessment letter to the reval, which is why I know the Briarcliff is definitely taking its time to really go through these evaluations. And I know, it's the town of Austining that has us doing it, and I know Briarcliff is very concerned about it. But it definitely took time for me to research that. I just really think that the communication to the residents of Briarcliff is important, so that way we can all be on the same page.
Thank you. Mr. DeRose, do you have anything you'd like to add or comment on?
I do not.
That's fine. Mr. Pohar?
Well, just talk about the communication. The board, as we sit now, is very open to communication. We do have work sessions. Anyone in the village is welcome to come to the work sessions to hear what we're talking about, what we're debating about, what's up for discussion. And that's just, so for people's information, if anybody didn't know that, we are open on our work sessions. They are announced. So anybody is available, anybody is welcome to come to the work sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Pohar. We'll now move on to the second question. And we're with you again, Mark. What is the status of the project to widen the east side of North State Road at the 9A intersection and to diminish the congestion and waiting time to make the turns onto 9A North and South, and how will it be funded?
This has been a very not controversial, but we've been a lot of movement with this. A lot of discussion about this. A lot of the residents in the village have approached myself and other members of the board about the 9A intersection. Although the roadways are not a village, the board has taken a strong look at it. We have proceeded to have plans drawn on this, and the board has a constant effort and a push to get this through. We had shared the plans and lobbied with with New York State, with the New York State Department of Transportation for their support, and they have approved our plans. These plans will hopefully alleviate that congestion and that bottleneck on North State Road and 9A. We have to work with Con Edison because there's gas line issues going on, and this is going to be starting next week for them to do some work under the road. So that we want to get that done before we start the road and before we start the intersection, and then we have to break up the road again. The mayor and the board really had taken a lead on this. by shared funding. We had met with elected officials. We had asked our municipalities for support. And although it's not an easy task, the meetings that we've had with the senators, with the legislators, with the elected officials were very promising. And the plan, we will see a light at the end of the tunnel in the very near future. And we do have traction on this.
Thank you very much. Mr. DeRose, do you have anything you'd like to say on that?
I do. Actually, I think this is a valid point. Kim had mentioned something earlier as far as what the individuals versus the board as a whole does. This project in particular has been batted around back and forth for, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years. So rather than every time a board changes or new members come, instead of reinventing the wheel, we take what has been done by previous boards, what other members have done, we expand upon that, we add our own insights. Depending on the length of the project, a lot of these things take quite a bit of time. In this instance, we had to, and the board, I'm talking about the specific board that's in place now, liaised with the state, the county, the town of the village of Ossining, as well as putting together Briarcliff's plans and having traffic studies done, engineering. So over the course of many people's hard work, many years, we've taken the entire package, and I think very, very shortly we're going to hear some good news because we've really led the charge to have a shared funding, have a shared plan, and have everyone working together as a team.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And Mary?
Once again, on the website, I checked out the letter, and there was a letter written last year to the state stating everything that Mr. DeRose said. And it said that we guaranteed funding for it, and we believed how important the project was, and we had all the studies. My only question is, as a resident, did we ever hear back from the state? I don't know where that's going, because there were 2 letters posted, and the second one stated all the hard work you guys did. It was tons of work with the traffic studies, and it mentioned how with the village of Ossining, but it said in the second letter that we never heard back in the first letter. So I just don't know if we're just running in circles or not.
Thank you.
I do agree
that
with
a
all the hard work.
question for me?
No, I agree with all the hard work you guys are doing. I just don't know where it stands as of now because it seems like we're just waiting for the state.
In so many words, that's correct.
You'll get a chance to respond. Ms. Izzarelli?
Thank you. Once again, I hope we don't spend the remainder of the debate talking about the status of projects in the village and not talking about ourselves and our skills, talents, and qualities, which is important here for the public to know because we can all read Phil Zagarelli's newsletter. Or if the website is not updated, I guess it's probably unfair to the other residents that only the people watching this will know what's going on. But in any case, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit and mention that, we do have a terrific village manager, and one point that should be made is there is a function for business continuity. Boards do change, they do turn over, and it's unfortunate in the past that you've had this issue handing from one board to another, but you do have a terrific business manager and village manager. So there is built-in business continuity. And further, I just would like to add which I didn't do in my intro with my remaining time here, is my experience working on nonprofit boards, which I have quite a lot of it. I serve on Planned Parenthood's Action Fund Board, which is a huge health service organization which provides services to women in Suffolk and Putnam in Westchester County. I am also, since 2012, your trustee on the Briarcliff Manor Public Library. So, and then just to mention Windcrest, I've been on the board since 2004. So I have a lot of experience in policy and managing budgets and working collaboratively with other trustees in the process of getting business done. And I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, anybody who would like to take a minute to respond? Mark?
I know. I'm good.
Chazar? Mary? Okay. Kim, I think you said enough, but if you want to say some more?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I always have something to say.
Thank you. And taking you up on what you suggested, I'm going to switch to some questions that have come from the audience.
Okay.
And the first one is from Bill Vesio. What value add or specific talent or work experience do you bring to the village as a trustee should you be elected?
Well, I think I just answered that in my last question. I'll try to restate it differently, but I take the role of being a trustee very, very seriously. And, you know, I have a little post-it on above my desk at home because I heard something when I attended a WLS meeting for library trustees a few months ago, and it said, your job as a trustee is to be worried about the future of your organization. And I really took that to heart. I think that's the hallmark of a good trustee, that you're constantly aware of issues, that you're soliciting opinions from your constituency, that you're on the ground, that you're aware, that you're open and inclusive in government, that your meetings are inviting. I'm glad to hear that you concur, Mark, but I don't feel our meetings are inviting. I think our public comment could be improved. You can't hear what people are saying. And further, it's not a very good venue. I certainly hope with all the money that we're spending on the community center that we're going to choose to use that place to broadcast our village meetings, because it can fit more people and it'll have the capability to have television there. So the venue needs to be improved, but I think the tone starts at the top, and people need to be open to different opinions and ideas and allow people to feel confident to come up to the podium and express them. And I really think we can improve there. Thank you.
And Ms. Satrin, would you be willing to take that question as well?
Oh, of course. The number one thing people say about me is that I work well with others. I have been able to work in many different committees, many different places, and I've always worked well with everyone around me. That is probably my number one talent. Being part of Briarcliff, I add the energy and enthusiasm of someone who really, truly loves this town. I wear Briarcliff everything. I support Briarcliff everything. And I just think I bring an energy and a perspective that might be new to the board and refreshing. And I would work well with everyone.
Thank you. Would either of you like to comment on that, although you did cover much of it in your opening statements?
I would like to. A lot I think I said in my introductory notes, but I will say that having worked on the board, having had the experience of being on the board, having had the experience of managing my own businesses, small businesses in the community, and then lastly, I think the most important quality is I have a kindergartner. So you speak about the future. I look at the future every day when I get home. So I have a vested interest in the village, even more so than I think, you know, my future is the next 20 years here is the school, is recreation, is camps, is keeping our community safe, keeping our property taxes within our reach. Our goal is to keep the place that I live and grew up and raise my children as beautiful and wonderful as I ever remember it.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. Mr. Pohar, would you like to take that?
Sure. I had given my opening statements, but one thing I had not included was my 35 years in healthcare. And working in healthcare, especially in today's day and age with narrow margins of reimbursement and how you have to do more with less to provide quality care for the patients, residents, the elderly. Dealing with budgets, was one of my stronger points. As far as working with the board, I think we were motivated, a team member engaged. one of the importance as a trustee is you're really working for the residents in the community to bring their concerns to the table and look for opportunities to enhance the village and the beautification and the quality of life for our residents in Briarcliff.
Thank you. With the concurrence of the candidates, I don't think we need to move to responses.
I just want to respond.
Go ahead.
Because just because Mr. DeRose mentioned he has a kindergartner, I have a first grader. So I too definitely believe that the future is my family as well. I just wanted that on the record.
Thank you. I'm going to move to another question from the audience. And this one as well is from Mr. Vesio. The tax cap this year is less than 2%. What does each candidate propose to do to meet this restriction? What is each candidate's position regarding an associated cap on expenditures, such as employee salaries and benefits? And let's start with you, Kim.
Yeah, sure. I know it's difficult. It's nil. And even to add, I guess, some insult to injury, the aid that'll come to the state, from the state, for schools is, I think, $1.7 billion, but the aid that'll go to municipalities will be in the form of competitive grants. So it's a different ball game to get increased aid or any sort of supplementing of the budget from Albany. So it's very, very challenging. On the expense side, I can tell you that I personally have experience as your trustee for the public library. I can tell you that we work very hard together. Budget's about $600,000, and again, we deal with all the same issues because the people that work in the library are covered by the plans that you mentioned and employee benefits and so forth, which do go up. But I would just say in my experience, what really sets apart a good board is people that are willing to look at things differently, to listen to different points of view, to consider changing, doing how you may do something. And really, in government, people have to pay attention. People need to ask questions. There's a significant amount of waste in government, sadly, and I can tell you that, having worked in it. And the only way I think that there's any sort of control about that is really whistleblowing, which is difficult because people don't want to put their jobs on the line. But just residents like you being informed and coming to public meetings and asking questions, asking, why do we need so much of this? Or, why, what is the coverage here? Is there a better, efficient way to do that? In the library, for example, we worked with the village manager to change the hours of operation, so we had more of an economy there. It helped us with budgeting and overtime and our use of part-timers, and all of these things impact a budget. A budget is 1,000 different decisions, and it really takes a good oversight of board members that are well informed. Thank you.
Ms. Satrin, would you like to take that?
Budgets are always tough, and I feel like, in general, it's like the number one thing people argue about. You never want to break the cap. It's very hard to get a vote to break the cap. And everybody, basically, the key is keeping everyone informed and seeing what everybody wants to try to make the tough decisions. Just go through it line by line, see where we can reduce, where we can cut, look at different hours, look at creative solutions.
And do you have a position on the second part of that question?
Can you
I know it
repeat
was
that?
a long one. Yes, sure. What is your position regarding an associated cap on expenditures, such as employee salaries and benefits?
Employee salaries and benefits are really difficult, especially if they are in contract already. If it's something that's already agreed to, such as like medical expenses that are already there, or retirement, which you're obligated to pay on. That's one of the hardest things to negotiate on. You've got to see when you're with your new hires as opposed to the people that are already there that you've already agreed to. So you're going to basically have to look at it with the people coming in, not the people that already stand there, because you've already, I'm using that word too much, it's already in play. So those things cannot be changed.
Thank you. Mr. DeRose?
I think one point that comes to mind when you speak specifically about to the point of salaries, perfect example, I can't go into terrible detail, but with our police force, because as you know, the Board of Trustees also serves as the Board of Police Commissioners, and they make decisions in regard to hiring of police. Very recently, we've made an effort to hire on and fill spots for officers, younger officers that would potentially stay and make a career with the village, at a lower salary and work their way up to the higher salaries. And I don't know the best way to describe it, but as the older officers or members of the force retire, bring them on with and cultivate a crop of younger officers. So you save on both salaries and you save on overtime by having a shortened staff. That's just a specific example for the police force, but I believe that that could hold true to the DPW and other employees for the village as well.
Thank you. Mr. Pohar, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. For many years, we've lived within the tax cap or stayed below it. Next year is going to be a challenge with our tax cap, and we have to look at creative financing ways, how to make sure we are lean in our employees without cutting services. As we had alluded to, 75% of our budget is compromised with salaries and benefits. A lot of that is contractually determined by the unions that we have. We have to look at creative ways if we don't have a contract, how we could have employees possibly contribute to benefits. Like Chazar had said, bringing in people at a lower salary, qualified people to do the job.
Thank you. Anybody want to take a response to any of those, or can we move on to another question? Thank you. Okay, this question comes from Mr. Wasserman, and it was initially directed to Ms. Satrin, but everyone as well is going to be asked the question. What is your vision for both near and long-term perspectives about the village master plan that was undertaken by consultants that made recommendations about housing density and location, plans to expand and enhance Pleasantville Road and North State Road, shopping corridors, and other important strategic areas of the village? That's a long question, so if you need any part repeated, let me know.
Does that mean I need to start? I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. I know that the plan has been changed a couple of different times. Actually, I had a friend at lunch the other day who told me she saw these gorgeous plans maybe a decade ago with the downtown area, and she asked me what happened to them. Things get changed, and the plans she described to me were a 2-story business area, whereas now we have some housing. I think the plans need to be relooked at. Honestly, I would love to see them. And my vision of Briarcliff is definitely more young families coming in and more shops, more restaurants. I personally don't want to go elsewhere when I want to eat on a cold winter's night. I would love for there to be more eateries for me just to go downtown and grab a bite. I would love to be able to meet every single one of my shopping needs in town. I try as hard as I can to do that now, but there are certain areas where we're lacking. My vision would be for all our needs to be met within the village. I think that anybody who loves being here doesn't really want to leave.
Thank you very much. Mr. DeRose, I'm going to direct that to you next.
Would you mind repeating?
Sure. What is your vision for both near and long-term perspectives, from both near and long-term perspectives, about the village master plan that was undertaken by consultants who made recommendations about village housing density and location plans to expand and enhance the Pleasantville Road and North State Road shopping corridors and other strategic areas of the village.
Well, near and long term, I think tie into one very specific piece to this puzzle, which are the owners of the buildings in which the shops and the restaurants are located. From the near standpoint, I believe he's here this evening. Lou Wachtel had mentioned a committee, or perhaps taking a look at just the overall look of the village and cleaning up and repainting light poles and trash receptacles and things of that nature. You know, I think it's misinformed by the general public, but the sidewalk, so to speak, as we see, by having the diagonal parking, we've encroached into that's not the village right of way. That sidewalk, so to speak, in front of the main strip of town is the if I'm not mistaken, is the responsibility of the owners of the property. So when people are looking to the board or looking to the village or looking to the mayor or looking to the DPW or to the village manager for rectifying those areas, I think sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle that that's technically not our property. So to tying into the long-term and short-term, the plans that I remember, if we're talking about the same thing, Paul, is 3 stories with retail at one location, and then on the next level having there be some type of office space, and then perhaps even residential or at the highest level. Am I correct in generally speaking? Again, all that ties into we as a village board, however you want to describe it, can work with the owners of those properties, but at the end of the day, it's not our property, so we would need to really give some incentive or some type of organization that would get, 4, 5, 6, just right on the strip that we call town alone, 5 or 6 different landowners that would have to get on the same page and put forth quite a bit of money. So I don't know how to do that at this point, but that would be my short-term goal, perhaps putting together a committee that would that would liaise with the owners, or, you know, I don't know, but that would be where I would start, is somehow working more closely with the owners. And again, going back to the owners, for the most part, aren't residents. So it's a difficult quandary there.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And if I may, I'm going to skip to Ms. Izzarelli to give her views on that.
Sure, thank you. Well, I do agree with Mary that I believe it's been, soon it'll be about 10 years to revitalize and update the master plan. And having lived here a while, I'm proud to say that I was one of the people involved in the original workshops as a community member. I was also privileged to, along with Elsie Smith, be part of the affordable housing community task force, which is an element of this. And as well, on behalf of the board, I was a delegate in 2010 to LULA, which is the Land Use Leadership Alliance at Pace University. So I'm pretty well versed on the master plan, and I guess probably the only thing that we all can agree upon in the village is it seemed the phrase that everyone wanted to preserve the quaint appeal was the catchphrase that we all had in common and liked and fell in love with. But I think the fact is that times change and the community has to change. And as I look out across this room, I just think about, you know, these young parents that are thinking about being here in 20 years. And I think about this crowd here of baby boomers and where you all be in 20 or 25 years. And I know for myself, I think about this a lot. And I just feel there's a tremendous need for more affordable housing in this community. And I hope that it was part of the master plan. I hope that we're able to find a way to support it and integrate it better. But frankly, there's just not enough places for our elderly residents and individuals with disabilities to live in this community and stay in this community. And so that would be something that, to answer Paul's question in the next master plan, that I hope we would give some consideration to. You know, we are fortunate that we do have a lot of housing stock of ranch houses, and those there are things that we can do, but this is something that we need to have a really serious conversation about in this community. Is where will we be able to live once you can't climb stairs? It's still affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Izzarelli. And just before I direct this question to you, Mark, we have approximately 5 minutes before we have to change the tape. So let's keep it within the time frame. And would you respond to that as well?
Sure. I agree with how the team had handled the question. Our long-range master plan had specified the central business district in Briarcliff Manor. But as Chezo had said, the central business district is really comprised of property owners that we don't have control over. They own the property. We have to engage them, I believe, and encourage them to enhance their storefronts and to keep up with the current times and our master plan. I think it'd be important to sit down and have encourage a meeting, give them our plan, and have them kind of participate and look for what the residents and what they would like to see moving forward in Briarcliff. Get their point of view, but encourage the business owners to participate and develop the central business district up to our liking for our residents.
Okay, Mr. DeRose, were you holding
Can
your
I
hand
say
up?
one thing?
Sure.
To Mark's point, but just tying back to what I was saying before, I think that engaging the business owners, when we say business owners, for example, and I'm saying this arbitrarily, but the person who owns March or the person who owns, the deli, they don't own the building. They don't live in Briarcliff. So, the owner of, Joe Weldon Stationery happens to be a different story, but if you go into Wondrous Things, he doesn't own the building, so if there's some trouble outside of his walkway, he's going to complain to his landlord. If you want to get on top of business owners, they have to get on top of their landlords. So, from that standpoint, as far as the village is concerned, the only quote-unquote stick to beat them with would be really looking at an architectural review or a standardization of policy of what the level of aesthetic needs to be, and then whether it be through the building inspector, whether that be a yearly checkup, a fining, what have you, staying on top of it that way. But, we keep saying the businesses. I know all the business owners personally. Not one of them lives in Briarcliff. And all the owners of the buildings those businesses are held inside of don't live in Briarcliff.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. We have 1 more minute if anybody else would like to say something.
I just think also, I forgot to mention this. I know there's various committees within Briarcliff. One of the ways that I think we might help with this master plan is by setting up yet one more committee on attracting different businesses, me to the citizens of what we need in Briarcliff. I know there was a ginormous petition about the Trader Joe's coming to Millwood, but a community committee might really help attract the businesses that we want in this area.
And I'm going to pick up where Ms. Satrin left off by going back to one of our questions. And this was once again submitted by a member of the audience, so people are still interested in it. There are several properties, Pace University, possibly Phillips Corp, that are on the market now or coming in the near future. In your view, what, if anything, can the village do to assure that these properties will be acquired by businesses that can enhance our tax base while minimizing infrastructure impacts? And whose turn do we want to start with? Do I have a volunteer?
I'll go first.
Okay, thank you,
I
Kim.
think it was my turn anyway.
Thank you. I lost track.
It's okay. I think there's several things that the village can do to improve the possibilities of those two properties and others from to be purchased and be productive. But I will just briefly return to an earlier point. One of the things that is important, and you find this out when you are trying to hire people here in Briarcliff, is anything that involves hiring labor for new employers is getting the staff here, particularly people who are mid to lower income. So again, it's another point why we need to have places for people to live, because if someone wants to locate in Phillips property, they need to be able to have their workers get here fairly inexpensively if they don't have cars. Otherwise, your cost of doing business goes up dramatically. So that is something that we could do. And making sure that the transit, whatever we can do to get the county to include it in the loop, is helpful. And, supporting the effort, just being outgoing and receptive to people that want to put a plan here. Look, it is not easy to present a plan here in Briarcliff, and it's a very long process. A lot of people are impacted. You need to solicit a lot of opinions. There's a review process, but I think it's about attitude. The PACE Briarcliff campus offers tremendous possibilities. It's in pretty decent shape. It's a good location. It's I think an ideal location for a school, and we offer a very highly educated community workforce to anyone that comes here, and transportation through the many highways that go through here. So I've always said this, employers should want to be in Briarcliff. It's a good place to do business, and they should want to locate here.
Thank you, Ms. Izzarelli. Ms. Satrin?
The community has been highly interested in PACE for a while. Everybody seems to be guessing what's going to go in there next. I once again go back to what I actually answered with the last question. I would think we should put together a committee made of community members to try to see what we can attract here and what type of business is needed here. By hitting different members of the community, different cross sections of the community, we could see what our community wants and what is the best fit for Pace and Phillips. Ideally, I think it would be a place for a business or a school, or a campus for a camp. Those are just a couple of my own brainstorms, but I would like to see, honestly, what the community feels. And I think if you got another committee together to work on that would be fabulous.
Thank you. Mr. DeRose?
In particular to the Pace property, and I think someone mentioned the Phillips property, is that correct?
Correct.
I think having just finished with the club property, which is a perfect example, the former King's College property, addressing these type of situations in that manner, not compromising on who and what will be allowed to use the property, keeping processes for getting a special use permit in place so that we can vet and properly align with any investment corporation, any school, any campus that's looking to come to Briarcliff. But while I agree we need to be welcoming, I think we need to be careful in the process in which we do business with these entities. Perfect example, going back to what was done in the club. I can't speak to what's going to happen in the future, but I think that this is just a good roadmap. There were infrastructure for the betterment of the village on the property that was not yet to be developed. And we, as a board and previous boards and the hard work of the mayor and previous mayors, allowed for the necessary approvals, and as well as maintain and improve for the greater good of the community on that property while during the process, without laying the burden on the taxpayer.
Thank you. Mr. Pohar, do you have something to say on that?
I think Cesar had explained it very nicely. I mean, we do monitor and meet with prospective purchasers specifically for the Pace property. Because we're looking, if we have an opportunity, Pace is a tax exempt. If we have an opportunity to get something back on the tax roll, so we can get some, revenue from properties, such as Pace. I mean, Phelps is the Phelps property is Phillips. Sorry, is not tax exempt. But Pace specifically. So, we do meet with the potential purchasers, and we will, for a special use permit, we will have the community involved. They will be able to voice their opinion at a open meeting to, once any prospective people come in to look at, have a strong interest in the property.
Okay, if I can continue on that with a little twist on the question from myself. It's my understanding that members of the village board can't really solicit businesses to come in and utilize properties. Is there any reason that a cooperation could not be started with a committee of citizens who organize to try and attract specific businesses?
Isn't that what I, okay.
I'm trying to spell it out a little
Okay.
more.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar with that.
I was suggesting it because I knew that the village couldn't do it directly. That was why I'd suggested having a committee of private citizens.
Go ahead, Kim.
On the state level, there's industrial development, and we could work collaboratively. We should work with our legislators. I mean, there are a number of ways, but I agree we can't directly go out and be real estate agents, but we can work with agencies that can do that.
Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. All right, we will move on to the next question. And this goes back to one that's been asked every year that I've been involved. The status of the planning work on the Scarborough Park Committee from a number of years ago. What efforts are being made to obtain grants from the county or the state for any of the planned improvements? And how much, if anything, has the village set aside for these future projects? Mark, would you start with that?
Yeah, sure. The Scarborough Park, I know it's come up many times before. And we are fortunate to live in such a community and overlooking the Hudson and the Palisades, and it's a beautiful landmark. This project has been outlined in the past, and it calls for some money to do the job, something like $1 million. We have, as a village, sought out funding for the project. The village had committed to half. It was a 50-50 split. We would put down $500,000. We'd need funding for the additional $500,000 to get the job done. As you know, in the state, the funding remains scarce. We had ponied up to move forward, but we didn't get the 50% from the state. I know we've had committees that had designs, outlined for a gazebo, walkway, for a fishing pier. So we would be interested in pursuing it. I do believe we are trying to work with the town and the village of Ossining as a collaborative effort to see if we could have some more leverage to get the funding. And if the funds are there, we would be, we're all for moving forward. I know we're working with Metro North right now to try to, clear up the railways and get that, that's the first start of the project. But if we can get the money, if we could work more, collaboratively with Ossining, that would be a priority to get that job done.
Thank you, Mr. Pohar. Mr. DeRose?
To add to what Mark had said, I think something that's important is that the importance of working with in multiple attempts, the village of Briarcliff Manor, for some of these particular grants and awards, we didn't meet the guidelines. So in reattempting, I think the newest attempt, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain the newest attempt is in a collaboration with the town of Ossining and the village of Ossining. And I believe that that will has a better chance at success when aside from the village on its own putting in for these grant monies because of the guidelines and the village not falling within those guidelines.
Has the village set aside any funds for this project?
I believe yes.
I don't quote me on numbers, but I know I heard a 500,000. I think there was, the whole total cost was about $1 million, and I believe the village had put up about half of the monies.
Thank you. Ms. Satrin?
Once again, this is one of the topics I researched, and the last letter I had seen online referring to this was actually dated 2011, and it said exactly what you're saying, that the Briarcliff had said they would give half the money. So once again, this goes back to my 9A question. Is it just that we're waiting for New York State to come back to us? Because it seems like we're doing that a lot.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Zarelli?
Yes, and like Mary, I also did research this a bit, and I'll just return to my earlier statement that the game now is the big aid goes to the school, but the municipalities are only limited to I think something like 1.7 million and spread among something like 77 municipalities across the state. So the amount of these grants, and they're called Environmental Protection Fund Local Waterfront Revitalization Grant Awards. And in my little bit of work with grants in school districts and government is the state really wants to make sure that you have some skin in the game. And my sort of cursory look down there at that park is you've got some really expensive issues. Somebody threw out $1 million. I believe that. You've got two really large, ugly runoff pipes that need to either be moved or relocated. You've got a wall that probably needs to be updated, repaired. You probably have a myriad of flood mitigation issues, which I think it's good that Metro North is interested, because we're really sort of the berm that protects their their tracks. So they really should have some skin in this as well. And then it's not a very large space, and so I think we really have to do some cost benefit in how much of our money we want to invest in this, because I'll tell you right now, the average awards, Beacon 50,000, Marlboro 135,000. These are all comparable projects, many on the Hudson. Peekskill got almost $1 million, but they had a waterfront trail and they did a pier and all sorts of things like that. At Phillipstown, $400,000. So you got to take that in mind, and also it takes a lot of time away from the village manager. Most of the grant money typically cannot go towards the actual capital project. They'll do a lot to allow you to use the money for design. And I haven't seen the specs of this grant specifically, but the heavy duty work really you end up paying for. So again, we really need to decide how badly we want this, what it will take away from the village manager's time and the board's time, and what is sort of the impact of just leaving it as it is.
Thank you. We're running down on time, so I'm going to ask one last question and ask you all to answer it briefly, and it is the kind of question that can be answered short. This is from Mark Wilson. If you lose the election in the caucus special voting meeting next week, do you pledge to support the winners and not run in the general election? We'll start with you, Mark.
On that, I would comment that I do respect the caucus process.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. DeRose?
I would support the caucus nomination.
Okay, and Ms. Satrin?
I'm going to have the unpopular opinion here. There's only one true election, and that's the election in March. This is election for nominations, and I honestly really love Briarcliff, and I want this position. If I do not win, I will tell you right now, I want to seek election as an independent. the only real election is in March. I do want to do it the correct way and win the People's Caucus nomination, but if I don't, I will. It is January where it's really hard to get voters out. I will absolutely go after it independently.
Thank you. And Ms. Israeli?
I concur with Mary. The vast majority of residents have no idea that there's an election on Wednesday, and the reason for that is because they didn't receive something like this in the mail, which tells you where to go vote, and this constitutes a legal election. So the election, as Mary said, is in March. My position on this is more about that I really feel that residents deserve to go to the poll on March 15th, as you know, anyone in this community, a new arrival to this community, you know, fill out the ballot and make a choice. The choice shouldn't be predetermined for them. That's really what a democracy is. That's really putting decision-making in the hands of all the people, not the 200 people on the caucus mailing list. And I think, you know, it's also a point that should be mentioned that in some ways it's a little bit of a voter suppression in terms of that the polls aren't even open all day on Wednesday, so there's probably some people that won't even get to vote. The absentee ballot process is kind of chaotic in my opinion, and it isn't run through here, which is another problem. But you know, a poll that's open from 3 to 9 p.m. at night really excludes, you know, parents with younger children, people that work in the city, maybe even older people that don't want to go outside when it gets dark because they're afraid of falling on the ice. And our vote should be representative of all the people that live in Briarcliff, not just the 200 people on the caucus mailing list, which, by the way, they must subscribe to be aware of all the functions of the caucus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Israeli. And we're going to go to closing statements, if anybody wants to make them. And we will start with you, Kim.
Once again, I thank you for this forum tonight. I think, if anything, it's been quite enjoyable just to share thoughts and ideas, and really, you know, you see 4 people here that obviously are very passionate about the operation in this village. But I think for myself, you can tell I've quite a long resume, and I've worked very hard in many capacities as a volunteer for this village, and I'm happy to do that, and I'll continue to do that. I really love living here. I'm very passionate on the issues, obviously housing and things like that. So I appreciate your support, and I hope you'll come out and vote for me on March 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Israeli. Now, Ms. Satrin.
One thing is really clear. Everybody up here really loves Briarcliff. And I really love the town, and I really want to be part of the future. Once I'm elected, I will be able to sit down, look at all of the committee work, and really gain a clearer knowledge with a fresh perspective. I am someone who wants to learn and is willing to dedicate time and effort that it takes to become a village trustee. And honestly, I feel like half the time we're waiting to hear back from the state with all the research I've done, so I really want to see what we can do. Some of the things I think we can do, maybe focus on without just waiting for the state.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose.
I think I've said all the reasons that I am seeking the caucus nomination, as well as all the reasons that I want to be trustee. But to reiterate, I believe the perspective that I bring to the caucus, to the village trustees, the board of trustees, is in having been raised in this town, raising a family in this town, conducting my business in this town, and having a history of volunteerism in this town. I have a good sense of what it takes to be a trustee.
Thank you. And Mr. Pohar, you're last.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the caucus for hosting tonight. As repeated by my colleagues here, I am eager to continue on as a village trustee. I've learned a lot. There's a lot more to do moving forward. I'm working with a group of people that are just superb, working with the previous mayor, Vesio, and the current mayor, Lori Sullivan. It's been my honor as a trustee to work under your leadership. I do look forward to working and moving forward. I do look forward to remaining a trustee, and I want hopefully your vote on next Wednesday and in March.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of the candidates. It was a spirited debate, and I think you've done a good job in acquitting yourselves and letting the community know who you are and why you want to run for trustee. At this point, I have a few other announcements. We have some sign-up sheets at the back of the room if anybody would like to assist with the election to be a poll worker or to collect nominating petitions for whoever wins the election. Secondly, we have some sheets in the back that announce the scholarship essay contest that we have launched for high school students resident in the village, so help yourself to those. And lastly, we're sponsoring a fundraising event that's going to take place at the mansion in Rosecliff on February 20th, starting at 7 p.m. It will include a wine tasting from Bordeaux wines from 85, 90, 95, and 2000. And there'll be refreshments served as well, and musical entertainment by Mike and Miriam Risco. So thank you all for coming out on this cold night. I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.